Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my spoiler discussion about the events of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. If you guys saw my last video, that was spoiler free. You know my thoughts on the movie, you know what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. But now we can get into the nitty gritty. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop this video now, because I'm going to go through basically everything that happened in the movie. If you don't care about spoilers, stick around and I'll give you guys my thoughts on what actually happened. And if you have seen the movie, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and maybe it'll give you a different outlook on the actual movie. Alright, so we're going to start with the opening. The opening was dope. I loved every second of it. So the opening scene is Kylo going through snowy woods, just slaughtering a bunch of dudes. Like, he's cutting them up, he's stabbing them. At one point he kills one dude with his guard, which was dope. Like, I loved it. He just went to town. All to find a tomb. And inside this, well, information has come out since the movie came out. Turns out he was actually on Mustafar, and it was Darth Vader's temple. But I didn't know that see in the movie, so you guys can include that or not. But he goes there to find what is called a Sith Wayfinder. Basically, Kylo is trying to get to the Sith planet. It's like the Sith homeworld. It's a secret planet that only certain Sith can find. It's called Exegol. The next scene, it shows him flying through like this red mist in the middle of outer space. It straight looks like the same color as a Sith lightsaber, and there's like crazy things in it that he's like dodging. And when he gets to the other side, he ends up on a planet that is completely barren, but wrapped in a storm. It's not raining, it's just lightning everywhere. And he finds a temple, and it looks like an upside down pyramid. It's all black. He goes inside, and he like pauses, and he starts hearing a voice. We all know who it is as soon as we hear it. It's Palpatine. That's right, Palpatine's immediately in the beginning of the movie. He's actually mentioned in the opening credits, you know, how they do in every Star Wars movie, episode 9, this is what's going on. The galaxy basically heard Palpatine's call, and nobody wants to believe that he's actually alive, so they think it's fake. But Kylo gets there, and as he's walking through, he sees people working, and he sees a vat full of Snooks. Turns out that Palpatine created Snook to basically run the First Order while he was away. And he basically tells Kylo that he has been the voice inside his head. He's been every voice inside his head. Every time he heard Vader, every time he heard Snook, every time he fucking talked to himself, it was actually Palpatine guiding him which way to go. He's been controlling everything, Kylo behind the scenes the entire time. So Kylo gets to Palpatine, and they're talking, and you see Palpatine's all messed up. He's blind, his eyes are all white, he's missing fingers, he's hooked up to a bunch of machines that are keeping him alive. Like, he may be alive after all this time, but he's barely living. And basically, he has been preparing to retake the galaxy since he was overthrown. Now, people already had a problem with the beginning of the movie and him being in it, because they think he should have been dead. But come on, it's Star Wars. How many times has somebody fallen down something and survived? Look at Darth Maul, he's alive, or was. Unless you see somebody die, they're never really dead. That's how it is in like every movie. But he basically raises an entire armada, and I'm talking like hundreds of ships, brand new Star Destroyers that I guess he's been working on for the last like 30 years. And then it cuts to the next scene, you know, after he does his signature laugh. It's Poe and Finn. They are sitting on the Millennium Falcon with Chewie, and they're playing that monster chess, you know, from A New Hope. And they're getting their butts kicked by Chewie, who's apparently 250 years old. I didn't know that. They announced that in there. And then, you know, they say he's cheating. Basically, they're going to meet to get a message from a spy that's in the First Order that's helping them out. They meet a guy. He says he's not the spy, but he has a message from the spy. So they plug it into R2, and R2 starts loading it. While R2's loading it, in come a bunch of TIE fighters, and the TIE fighters start attacking the Falcon. They get the message, they close up, they try to get out of there. You know, they're being followed by these TIE fighters. Poe's doing, you know, his Poe thing, flying through a bunch of crazy stuff, trying to get the ships to crash on each other. Finn's in the gun, shooting them. This was actually a really cool scene because, you know, Finn's the soldier and Poe's the pilot. So seeing them work together like this was really, really cool. Poe decides to do something weird that we've never actually seen before. They call it warp speed skipping. Basically, he jumps to warp speed, goes a little bit. The actual TIE fighters follow him into warp speed. We know that the First Order can do that. They've done it since The Force Awakens. And then he stops out of nowhere, not knowing where he is, not knowing what he's doing. But he stops to try and get them to stop, you know, in the middle of an obstacle and crash, and then he jumps again. He does this a few times. He ends up in a city, TIE fighters crash. He ends up warping almost before he crashes into something. And he's doing this to create obstacles to try and, you know, crash these TIE fighters. The last two actually get devoured by a giant monster before he jumps away. It was a really, really cool scene. Like I said, the visuals of this movie were gorgeous. Then it shoots over to Rey. Rey has been training since the events of The Last Jedi with Leia, which, again, I thought was really, really cool. They never really get into Leia as far as Jedi training, but it's revealed in this movie that apparently she did indeed train to be a Jedi. So it starts off with Rey meditating, you know, rocks wrapped around her. She's reaching out with the Force. She's trying to reach the spirits of the other Jedi to kind of, like, you know, connect with the Jedi of the past. We've seen a million people do this, you know, always talking to Force ghosts and whatnot. But she's failing at it. So she talks to Leia. She's like, I'm gonna go run the training course, and it shows us the training that she's been doing. Training with her lightsaber, training with her staff. At one point, she's running through a course with a blast shield on, while she's getting shot at by a little droid that she's deflecting the blasts. While this is happening, it shoots over to Kylo again. Kylo is on his ship. And he's in his room, and he touches the mask of Darth Vader, the ruined mask of Darth Vader. And he gets a flash of when he killed Han Solo. I guess him killing Han Solo is still messing with him. And Rey, being connected to him, sees it too. And it starts messing with her while she's training, and she starts getting angry because she's trying to focus, and she's getting all worked up. She starts making mistakes, but then she starts trying to destroy the droid that's shooting her. And she starts cutting down trees. Eventually, she gets it with her actual staff, stabs it, but she kind of messes up BB-8 a little bit because a tree falls on him. She gets back to Leia, tells her she didn't complete the course. She's like, "It's okay, you've been doing great. You'll get it next time." And she says that this is one of the scenes that I couldn't help but smile. She's just like, "Thanks, Master Leia." Then, like I said, a lot happens in the opening. The Falcon lands, and it's on fire. Poe almost burned out the Falcon. Rey gets there, she starts freaking out because, you know, Han gave her the Falcon. And Finn comes out, and Finn's like, he lightspeed jumped. Excuse me. She starts yelling at Poe. Poe gets mad at her because she messed up BB-8, and, you know, that was his droid for a while. And they go back and forth, and it was a funny scene. But they listen to the message they got, and basically it's a message from their spy confirming that Kylo has met with Palpatine, and this armada of ships that they are going to use to become the Final Order. Again, cheese. He's basically combining all the Sith troopers, anybody that was taking care of him. Apparently he had a whole legion of followers. And they're going to combine them with the First Order to become the Final Order. I hated that name. They find out that the attack is coming from the planet Exegol. Nobody knows where the hell Exegol is. Rey remembers reading about it in one of Luke's journals. So she pulls out Luke's journal and she finds out about it. Turns out Luke had tried to find Exegol. He was tracking somebody who actually had, or at least knew where to find a Sith Wayfinder. So she wants to take off. She wants to go from where he left off. Now we go to the middle. This is the kind of the middle of the movie. Again, lots happening. They take 3PO, BB-8, and Poe, Finn, Rey. They all decide to go and try and find this way to Exegol. They end up on a whole new desert planet. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it. They end up there right in the middle of a festival honoring the ancestors. It's cute, everybody gets there, it's all happy-go-lucky. Little girl goes up to Rey and starts talking to Rey, and she tells Rey her name, and Rey's just like, oh, I'm Rey, and 3PO's translating, mind you. She tells Rey that she would be honored to know her family name, and Rey's like, I don't have one. You'll understand my face when I get to the end of this. She gives Rey a necklace. Well, for whatever reason, again, this is one of those times where they do it out of convenience. Kylo kind of reaches out to Rey with the Force. Now, they explain this in a way that makes sense, at least to me, but people complained about it. It gets explained later, but there is a reason their Force connection is so strong, like stronger than anything else anybody's ever seen before. It's not that they're individually strong. Like, if you put them up against Anakin as far as their connection to the Force, Anakin would still be stronger. But their connection to each other by the Force is a whole different animal. But either way, they have the ability to interact with each other's space, even though they can't actually see the space around them. So Kylo's trying to figure out where Rey is. Rey refuses to tell him. He actually snatches the necklace off her neck, and he gives it to his people to analyze, and they figure out where she's at. So he sends troopers there to find her. I guess there was already troopers on the planet, but once he tells them that they're there, they start looking for her. They start freaking out. They try to run. They get picked up by Lando Calrissian. He's in this like random ship. It's not even a ship. It's like kind of like what the same people use to get around. But again, this is one of those things, convenience. He just happened to be there. He basically tells them where the ship they're looking for is. And once the First Order troops start showing up, they run. They end up stealing some speeders. They have this cool little chase battle. Stormtroopers have jetpacks now, like wishing they were Mandalorians. They manage to they all manage to stop them. They all manage to kill them all, but they end up getting blown up at the very end. And they end up landing in this like black, what looks like quicksand, because it just kind of sucks them all in. And that's when they end up in the cave. They end up in underground in a cave. Funny scene where Poe pulls out a light, and then Rey pulls out her lightsaber, and Poe just look. This is a funny scene. So they're looking around, trying to find a way out, and they end up finding the dude whose ship they were trying to find. I'm sorry, I missed the point. Right outside the quicksand where they landed was the ship they were looking for, and they ended up sinking deep down right in front of what they needed to find. They end up finding the bones of the guy that died, and he ends up having a dagger with him. And Rey picks up the dagger, and she starts like freaking out a little bit. She's like, something horrible happened with this dagger. 3PO looks at it and is like, oh, it's written in Sith. He's like, I can read it, but I can't tell you what it says. I guess his program prevents him from actually speaking or translating Sith writing. Like he can read it, but he can't tell you what it says. Like, in case someone tried to use him to find something with Sith. So everybody freaks out at him for a minute. Then they get attacked. Well, they don't really get attacked, but they end up running into a giant like worm snake monster with like giant fangs, and it's huge. It's at least the size of a building. Well, not a building, but at least the size of a room. And they all freak out. They pull out guns. Rey pulls out her lightsaber, and they're like ready to fight this thing. But Rey, from what I could tell, she reaches out with the Force and tries to communicate with it. It stays calm enough for her to get close to it, and she realizes that it's wounded. And this is the first time we see this. This is something people complained about, but I actually think it's cool. Rey uses the Force, and as she puts it, she uses some of her life force through the Force to heal this animal. Now, people complain because there's so many things that could have been avoided if Force healing was a thing. Like Anakin could have Force healed Padme, which would have stopped him from turning into Vader, and all this other stuff. But this is the first time in the entire canon, I'm saying specifically, that we've seen Force healing. Obviously, there's been things in Legends and whatnot, but according to Disney, that's not canon anymore. Like, all 8 movies before this, Clone Wars, Rebels, we have never seen Force healing. This is the very first time we've ever seen it. She heals the animal, and the animal not only leaves them alone, it actually gives them a way out. When they get out, they end up on the ship. They decide not to go back to the Falcon because, they're probably swarmed by enemy troops, which it's true, and they end up taking the Falcon. Finn and Poe go to make sure and Chewie go to see if the ship's still working. Rey ends up walking out into the desert. Kylo shows up in his little ship, his little ghetto TIE fighter, and that's the scene we see in the trailer where he's rushing at Rey. Rey does this cool guy thing where she runs back and then backflips and cuts the wing off. It's cool. Kylo gets out. Everybody's trying to leave, so they send Chewie to go and get Rey. Well, the First Order already got there with Kylo, and they capture Chewie along with the dagger. They take him in a transport and they take him off. Rey sees this and she freaks out, and she actually grabs the entire transport with the Force and tries to pull it down, and she succeeded. It was cool. I was like, wow, that's dope. Well, Kylo gets out of the wreckage of his now down ship and grabs the transporter too, and he starts pulling it toward him. So they're going back and forth, and neither one of them is given. Except Rey starts getting frustrated, and she wants to get Chewie back. They have her friend, and she gets to the point where she gets seriously angry because of Kylo stopping her from saving her friend, and she accidentally uses Force lightning. This part blew my mind because I didn't think they were gonna have something like this in it. But she accidentally uses Force lightning on the transporter and blows the transporter up, and she immediately crumbles. Poe and Finn spaz out because Chewie was on that transporter. So she's like, oh my god, I just killed Chewie, what the hell just happened? But, again, this movie was so fast-paced, she didn't have time to even think about it. Finn's just like, he's gone, we gotta go. If we don't go now, then he just died for nothing. So they grab Rey and they all leave. They end up going to a new planet. The planet's controlled by the First Order, but I guess this was a planet where Poe used to be a spice runner. I didn't know that was illegal in this universe, but the more you know. The planet was called Kijimi. Yeah. They basically go there to try and get someone to hack into 3PO to get the information they need. When they get there, they're sneaking around and they get attacked by a woman. This woman, name was Zorii. She knew Poe from when Poe was running spices, and Poe left to join the Resistance and kind of screwed her over, leaving her and a bunch of her friends into a shitload of debt. So she immediately wanted to just shoot Poe. This is one of those new characters I was talking about where we don't really get to see much of her. All we know is that she knows Poe, and then Poe starts flirting with her. She goes to shoot Poe, and then she sees Rey, and she knows there's a bounty on Rey's head, and she's like, the bounty for you might just be enough to get us out of debt. So they go to capture Rey, and then Rey does some cool guy stuff and beats all their asses real quick, and ends up with her lightsaber at Zori's neck, Zori's face on the ground. It was dope. This is one of the first scenes we see where it actually shows that Rey knows how to fight now. She ends like, I like you, you know what, I'll help you out. They meet this little tiny alien like this tall, and it starts working on 3PO. The only problem with them breaking into 3PO is if they do this, it wipes 3PO's memory. He's going to forget everything he's ever seen over the entire course of the series. And 3PO's been in every movie. They asked if they could have maybe backed him up into R2, but he's like, we can't trust what R2's memory banks. It cuts to a scene with Poe and Zori overlooking the building, keeping watch out for the First Order. And this is probably the only time Poe actually has any kind of characterization, unfortunately. But he's down in the dumps. He's honestly ready to just give up. He doesn't think anyone's going to help them fight. He's ready to quit. I guess there was a battle where they called for help and nobody showed up, which is pretty messed up. But Zori cheers him up, gets him to think about fighting again, and gives him a little token. It's not a token, it's like a chip that basically makes a ship read as a high-ranking officer to the First Order, so they can use it to get through certain checkpoints and whatnot, or onto a ship. Well, here comes a Star Destroyer out of nowhere, and it's Kylo's ship. This is probably the only part I'm a little fuzzy on, because I don't remember why or how his ship got there, but he ended up there. If it's one of those things that's just convenience, that sucks. But I'm pretty sure there was a reason why. I think they tracked the ship because it was a First Order ship that they flew there with. Either way, he just happened to show up right when they broke into 3PO. That's where we see that scene where 3PO says, "I'm looking at my friends one last time." But when they break into 3PO, he basically tells them that the dagger, what the dagger said was that there is a Sith Wayfinder in the Emperor's vault on one of the moons of Endor, because a piece of the Death Star crashed on another moon of Endor. So they got to go back to one of the moons of Endor. They reboot 3PO. He has the same personality, but he doesn't remember any of them, so it's like he's doing everything again for the first time. When Kylo's ship shows up and Rey sees it, she actually senses that Chewie's on the ship. What had happened was there was actually 2 transports on that ship that had landed there. We can only really see one of them. I guess you could see the other one if you were paying attention enough, but I definitely didn't. So they actually had Chewie and were interrogating him. They realized Chewie's on the ship, so they used the chip that Zori gave them to get on the ship. They get on the ship. They immediately blast some stormtroopers while they're sneaking around. Which, how they managed to kill 2 stormtroopers and still sneak around, plot. They get found by 2 more stormtroopers, and Rey Jedi mind tricks them. That's nothing big. We've seen that a million times. Rey's been able to do it since the first movie. They end up splitting up. Finn and Poe go after Chewie. She goes after the dagger. The dagger was in Kylo Ren's personal quarters. When she gets there, Kylo reaches out to the Force because he's on the planet now looking for her. He's trying to figure out where she is. He actually tells her that he knows the truth about her, and if she meets him, that he will fill her in on everything that she's missing. He knows why her parents sold her, all this, that, and the other. She gets mad. They start fighting. Now, mind you, they're in 2 separate points. He's on the ground. She's up in the air in his room, and they start fighting through this mystical force bond of theirs. While they're fighting, it turns out that they are messing with the space that each other's in. He kicks up some gravel. It ends up on the floor in the ship where she's at. What actually ends up happening is while they're fighting, they smack the stand that had Vader's helmet on it, and Vader's helmet ends up next to Kylo. Kylo realizes, oh, she's on the ship in my quarters, so he rushes back to the ship with the Knights of Ren. He had the Knights of Ren down there looking for them with her. Poe, Finn, they end up getting back to the ship, but they end up surrounded by stormtroopers. I'm sorry. Poe and Finn end up getting caught by stormtroopers, and they're about to be executed. They get sent to another room to get executed. Turns out that one of the generals from the last 2 movies is the spy, the really, really stupid looking one that sounds like a mouse. He basically wants to take over, but in order to do that, he needs Kylo Ren to lose. So he's turning against Kylo. He saves them. He brings them to the Falcon. He has them shoot him, and he tries to play it off but they end up realizing he's the traitor and they shoot him. He was a stupid character anyway. They get out in the Falcon. Rey tries to go back to the ship and ends up running into Kylo, getting surrounded by stormtroopers. And Kylo basically tells her the truth, that she is in fact the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, and that the reason that the reason her parents sold her was to protect her because Palpatine wanted her dead, because he had seen what she would become, and that she would take his place. Now they actually this is the point where they also explain their Force bond. The terminology they used was a little weird to me, so I'm gonna explain it in the best way I can. They are something special. It has happened before. It does not happen often. Basically, because of their histories, the Force actually wanted them to be one person. But because of the way things happened, they were born as two separate people. So the Force is still trying to bring them together. It's like they're like a conjoined twin, where instead of having bones and flesh together, the Force is holding them together. That's why the closer they are together, the more powerful each of them is. The reason Rey was unlocking all her powers, at least this wasn't said in the movie, but this is my guess, is because she was in close proximity to Kylo. But like, if you look at their histories, it kind of makes sense. Like, they're both the grandchildren of the most powerful Force users to ever be in the series. She's the granddaughter of Palpatine. He's the grandson of Vader. His mom was the daughter of Vader. Her dad was the son of Palpatine. And then he's a male, she's female. It trickled down, and that's how they explain their bond. They are something rare, but something special. They are not the chosen one, but together, like I said, they're supposed to be one person. That's why they can interact with each other's space, because in reality, they are sharing the space through the Force. Kylo tries to get her to join him again. He offers the entire time. He wants to use her to take on the Emperor. He thinks together they can beat the Emperor, and they can rule the galaxy together. She almost does it, and then the Falcon shows up. And the Falcon blows everybody away, and Rey's able to get away. Now they have the dagger, they have the Falcon. They end up going to the moon of Endor, where the piece of the Death Star is supposed to be. When they get there, they realize their landing gear's on. They have to crash land. They start working on the ship. They end up meeting some more new characters. Basically, there's some First Order troops there that had actually abandoned the First Order. They've been hiding out on the moon of Endor, and they've actually seen the destroyed piece of the Death Star. So they take them to see it, and Rey realizes that the dagger, the way it's cut, lines up with a broken piece of the Death Star. And inside the handle, there's a little golden piece that points like an arrow to where she's supposed to go. Again, convenience. Who makes a dagger like that? There's water on the moon, and it's rolling really, really fast. And the people that are there say they'll take them there in the morning once the tide calms down. So Finn ends up going back to the ship with Poe and these other people. Rey leaves everybody and takes the first thing she can that floats and is like, I'm going now. I can't wait. She goes. She ends up getting there. Finn takes another skiff, I think they called it, and tries to follow her. When she gets there, this is where we see some interesting stuff. She gets there. She finds Palpatine's throne. We hear some voices of what happened there. You know, the whole thing with Luke and Vader and all that. She ends up in the vault. She finds the Sith Wayfinder, and as soon as she does, she gets attacked by herself as a Sith. That's where you see that whole crazy lightsaber thing. She actually gets beat by herself and ends up falling out of the room. And as soon as she falls out of the room, Kylo's already there. Kylo knew where she was going. They start fighting. He manages to get the Wayfinder from her, and he breaks it. They keep fighting. That's when we see in the trailer when they're on the outside of the Death Star fighting in the middle of the rain. This fight was actually pretty dope. We see some cool things out of both of them, some nice moves. They end up catching each other's lightsabers with the Force. It's a lot of back and forth, but he starts wearing Rey down. She starts getting exhausted. She starts making mistakes. Kylo's actually about to beat her, but Leia can sense their conflict from thousands of miles away on this other planet because she's still with the Resistance group, and she goes in a room and she lays down. We see the same alien that gave Rey, where Rey found the lightsaber, the lady with the eyes like that, and she says she knows Leia knows what she has to do, and Leia uses all of her strength to reach out to Kylo, and when she does, it kills her. And Kylo can feel that, and he actually like stops, and Rey stabs him in the stomach. He sinks, and right after she stabs him, she feels it too, and she realizes Leia's gone, and she just starts bawling her eyes out. They both sit there for a little bit. He's struggling to breathe. They're both wicked upset. You know, their mother figure just passed away. Rey feels bad for him and ends up using her power to heal him. And she tells him that she did want to take his hand. She did want to join him, but not as he is. She wanted to join him as Ben Solo. She leaves him there, takes his ship that he got there with, and just disappears. Finn and Poe realize that she's gone, and they end up flying back to the Resistance planet, and they go to tell Leia what happened, and that's when they get the news that Leia passed away. And she, as her final wish, wanted to make Poe the general of the Resistance. Poe spazzes out a little bit. He doesn't want to do it. Again, he was ready to give up, but he realizes, you know, if Finn has his back, he can do it. So he makes Finn a general, and they become co-generals. Rey ends up going back to the planet where Luke went into exile, and she was also ready to give up. She actually lands there, lights the ship on fire. She's like, she has no intention of leaving, and she's throwing wood at it, making the fire bigger. She's screaming, and she actually takes Anakin's lightsaber and goes to throw it in the fire. And right before it hits the fire, a hand reaches out and grabs it. And Luke's Force Ghost walks out, and he's just like, a Jedi weapon should be treated with more respect. And he basically gives Rey a pep talk because she was all done with the world. You know, she was upset with Luke. She was upset with Leia. She didn't have the Wayfinder. You know, everything was spiraling out. And then Luke's just like, you have everything you need right here. And then she ends up checking Kylo's ship after the fire goes out, and the Sith Wayfinder was in his ship. And because of what it's made of, the fire didn't destroy it. And then Luke's just like, I also have a gift for you. And she goes inside the temple and removes a block, and she pulls out a lightsaber. It was Leia's lightsaber from when Leia trained with Luke. So Leia had trained with Luke, but gave up being a Jedi because she saw the future and saw that her path as a Jedi would lead to the death of her child. But she wanted Luke to save her lightsaber because she knew somebody was going to need it eventually. So she takes both lightsabers, and she needs a way back home. So Luke, being the badass that he is, even as a ghost, uses the Force. It's a callback to Yoda to raise his X-Wing that's apparently been underwater for all these years, so that way she can use it to leave. That part, I'll admit, was stupid. It's been, 30 plus years, and it's been sitting under the water. How does it even move? But it is what it is, you know, plot. She ends up plugging the Wayfinder in and goes to Exegol. She ends up sending a signal to 3PO, not 3PO, to R2, who catches the signal, realizes it's from Luke, and they figure out it must be her. R2 manages to reboot 3PO's memories. He wasn't happy with 3PO for getting his best friend. And they gather up. There's, you know, the montage of all the fighters getting together, getting ready to go to Exegol to stop everybody. So, I apologize. Before all this, there was one scene I forgot about. All those Star Destroyers, they use one of those stars. They use Kylo's Star Destroyer to destroy Kimiji, the planet they're on. It turns out that all these Star Destroyers are equipped with planet-destroying cannons. So this was a serious threat, and they needed to find Exegol and destroy these cannons ASAP. Where am I? So Rey gets to Exegol first, obviously. she starts wandering through, kind of like how Kylo did at the beginning. But it also flashes to Kylo. Kylo still got left on the moon of Endor, and he's having his midlife crisis, and he sees the ghost of Han Solo. Now, it's not really a ghost because Han Solo isn't a Force sensitive. It's his projection from his mind. And he basically tells him that, you know, he doesn't have to do this anymore. He doesn't have to be Kylo Ren. And, like, he basically tells him, like, even with all the mistakes he's made, he can still go back to being being his son. And they mirror the scene from The Force Awakens where he's like, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And, you know, Han says some nice things, like basically he's not alone, he doesn't have to do it alone. And he ends up taking his cross lightsaber and throws it into the water. And it just shows him walk off. Rey ends up meeting Palpatine, and Palpatine basically gives her the lowdown that he never wanted her killed, he wanted her brought to him alive. That he wanted her to become the next Emperor of the Sith. And she's like, I'll never do it, I'm going to kill you, blah, 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 I'm going to stop you now. And he's like, good, be angry, hate me. Because when you kill me in anger, my spirit will pass through you and you will become the next Sith. You will become the next Emperor. As this is all happening, Finn and the rest of the Resistance are flying through the red stuff from the beginning, and they get to Exegol. And they can't destroy the ship. They want to destroy the ships, but if any of the ships get out, they have planet-busting weapons. They can just go around and start blowing away planets. Luckily, Exegol, again, plot, because of this giant storm surrounding Exegol, their navigation, they have no way to take off without something leading them off-world. So they have a navigation tower on the ground that's telling them which way to fly. So they're like, if we destroy that tower, they can't take off. They go destroy the tower. They end up transferring the signal to one of the ships that's already ready to go, and they're like, we'll use this to navigate the rest of the ships out of here. So they go and attack that ship. While it's happening, there's obviously TIE fighters and everything going around trying to shoot them all down. Finn ends up landing on this ship and starts fighting with basically the First Order troops they met on Endor had a bunch of like weird horse things, and they used that to get around so that way they can't jam, because they thought they could just jam the vehicles and whatnot. Back to Rey. Rey basically tells Palpatine she's not going to do what he wants. She's not going to kill him. Palpatine gets mad and like spazzes on her. Mind you, they're in a room surrounded by people that are like worshiping him. It was kind of weird, honestly. Kylo Ben gets to Exegol and ends up running in. He's in a whole different outfit now. He actually looks like a normal person, not like an edgelord. And he gets attacked by the Knights of Ren. Now, mind you, he's unarmed now, so he tries to fight them with straight fisticuffs and using force powers, and he gets smashed around. Rey starts having to fight Palpatine's guards, and it's just not going well. And Finn's pinned down. Poe's getting blasted. Poe's people are getting blasted out of the sky. He's watching his friends die left and right. Poe's ready to call it when he gets a radio message from Lando Calrissian. I guess before they had gotten here, they had sent a message out, hoping that somebody would come, like sending it out to anybody who would hear it. We're going to stop the Empire. We need your help. Well, he flies around one of the Star Destroyers, and it's like watching. It was like watching Avengers Love Again. There's just ships flooding the sky, coming to help, and then the Falcon shows up in the middle of it, coming down. They start getting more help from the air. They start actually winning. Finn manages to blow the command ship. He manages to blow the navigation part of the command ship, shuts down all power. So while they're rebooting the ship, he comes up with a plan to blow up the ship with its own cannon. They start winning the fight. Rey manages to make a comeback. What ends up happening next is actually kind of funny. That force power connecting them, they actually use it. And she passes Anakin's lightsaber to Kylo in a whole nother space. And he ends up pulling it out, and he's able to beat the Knights of Ren. She pulls out Leia's lightsaber and she goes to town. They finally join up. And then, you know, lightsabers at the ready to go at Palpatine. Mind you, Palpatine's still strapped to the machines, barely alive. He tells them, he describes their bond and how rare it is. I guess it's only happened like once in like 3,000 years or something. And he's able to drain their force power right out of them off of their bond. I guess them coming together was all part of his plan, and he uses their power to heal himself. He regrows his fingers, his eyes come back, and he's just like, you are just going to be the catalyst to bring back the real Sith Emperor. They drop fully, completely out of energy, no power left, and Palpatine's back to his old self, except now he's like blue, which was weird. He sits in his throne, and he's just like I fell, so too with the last Skywalker, and he yeets Ben off of a cliff into a hole, and he sees his troops losing the fight, and he's like, "Don't worry, my loyal followers, your emperor has returned," and he does the biggest thing of Force lightning we've ever seen, and manages to electrocute every ship in the air, and they all just start falling out of the sky. It was actually really dope. Rey is on the ground, and she looks up, and she's just saying, "Be with me." And she's looking into the sky, and she's looking past the lightning, past the clouds, and she sees the universe. And she starts hearing the voices. She starts hearing the voices of every Jedi that's ever been in the series, every Jedi that's ever existed, telling her to get up. We hear Anakin telling her, "Bring balance to the Force," like I did. We hear Luke, we hear Leia, we hear Yoda. Pretty sure we heard Ahsoka. It was dope. She gets back up, barely alive, and she gets up, barely alive, and Palpatine stops electrocuting the sky to focus on her, and Finn manages to get the cannon going again, blows up the ship. Ship's falling up the sky. Finn thinks he's gonna die, but here comes Lando. Lando's in there to save him. Poe tried to, but he wasn't fast enough. So that's going successful. They start destroying all the Star Destroyers now that they have the time to destroy them. Palpatine goes to hit Rey with Force Lightning. Rey blocks it with the lightsaber. And he's saying, "You're no match for me. You know, I am every Sith that's ever existed, all in one. I have every Sith with me." She calls Leia's lightsaber to herself, and ends up doing like an X guard, blocking the lightning. And she's like, "And I'm every Jedi." And she pushes herself forward, and basically kills Palpatine with his own lightning. He disintegrates. Now, my only gripe with this scene, I had no problem with that being the way she killed him. But there's two things I wanted. A, I wanted Kylo and Rey to actually fight Palpatine. Like, Palpatine's always been an amazing lightsaber duelist. And having them fight and then get their asses whooped, get their power drained, and then try and fight him and get whooped because they're so exhausted, and then have him yeeted, that would have been cool. And rather than just hearing the voices of the other Jedi, I would have liked to seen Force Ghosts of them with her. Finish off the way they did, that's fine, but I would have liked to see more to the scene. This is one of the scenes that left me wanting more. Either way, she's so exhausted from the fight that she falls down and she dies. And Finn is apparently Force sensitive. The entire movie he's talking about feelings that he's had, and he's talking about he thinks it's the Force. But when Rey dies, he really feels it. He knows immediately. Just when they're, everything's starting to settle, and here comes Ben climbing out of the hole, and he finds Rey and he picks her up, and he's trying to wake her up, but she's dead, and he puts his hand on her stomach, and she ends up waking up. Guessing he was able to use Force Sending on her. She wakes up. She realizes that it's him. She's like Ben. They kiss, and then he falls down and he disappears. At the same time he disappears, it shows a clip of Leia's body on the forest planet they were on, and her body also disappears. Now, Leia most likely became one with the Force, just like a lot of other Jedi. As for Ben, there's two possibilities with that they never actually tell us. Either A, he became one with the Force, or B, he became one with Rey. Now, their Force connection was so powerful, and the Force wanted them to be one person, so it's definitely a possibility that they combined. And his life force is what actually brought her back. But they never actually tell us, which, again, left me wanting more. They go back to the Force planet, everybody's celebrating, everybody's happy. Poe hits on his little girlfriend. Finn's hugs Poe, he's happy. But, you can see on his face that he's also sad because he still thinks Rey passed away. He thinks they still lost so much. And then Rey gets there and, it's a party. Rey, Finn and Poe all hug it out. Everybody's happy. It shows all the Star Destroyers blowing up, kind of like how the Death Star blew up and everybody could see it. Yeah, it definitely felt like the end of Return of the Jedi. Again, too many callbacks. The final scene of the movie shows Rey going to Tatooine, and she actually ends up in Luke Skywalker's home, where he grew up, with Uncle Ben and all them. And she walks around a little bit. She looks around. What she actually ends up doing is she ends up with Luke and Leia's lightsabers, and she wraps them up and she buries them in the sand, real deep with the Force. And then she gets up and she pulls out her own lightsaber, and you could tell by the way the hilt is that she actually made it with parts of her staff. And then she ignites it, and then yellow blade comes out, which is really cool because we don't see a whole lot of yellow lightsabers in the movie, in any of the movies. She shuts it off, and then some old lady's there with what looked like a camel thing, and she's like, "Nobody's been here in years, and who are you?" And she's like, "I'm Rey." And she's like, "Rey who?" Rey looks off into the distance and she sees Luke and Leia's ghosts smiling at her, and she's like, "I'm Rey Skywalker." Hence, Rise of Skywalker. Cue ending credits. That last part was really, 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 really cringy. But that's the entire movie. Like I said, it wasn't terrible. It didn't deserve the amount of hate it got. My final score was 7. 7 out of 10. Kylo had a great character arc. Rey was very meh. Finn, I wanted them to do more with Finn, especially once he realized that he was a Force sensitive. Like, I would have loved to see him train as a Jedi too. Poe didn't do anything. Poe was crying in a corner for most of the movie. I really liked the opening of the movie. I wish they could have extended it and not made it feel so rushed. The middle of the movie just felt ungodly slow, and the end of the movie, like, I just wanted the final confrontation with Palpatine to be bigger. Like, I wanted it to be a bigger deal. It didn't feel nearly as big as other fights. Like, we have a series where fights like Darth Maul, Yoda versus Sidious, like things like that. Like, Yoda versus Sidious was one of my favorite fights in the entire Star Wars saga. So, like, I just wanted more. Like, I would have liked to see Sidious fight. But that's it, guys. That's everything. All my thoughts on this movie. That's everything that happened. I hope you guys like my review, my spoiler review. I hope you guys like me talking about the movie. But yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good one and enjoy the holidays. Later.